Gave me a little spinning wheel for a second. I got nervous.
That's all my computer does. I'm due for a new one.
How old do you think your computer is?
Well, this laptop that we record on, only a few years old. Fantastic. My actual computer, 2000, and let's go with 12, so maybe 13 years old. And it's got, so many files and so much. It's just slow, slow, slow. How about yours?
2019, and I think we're about to the time where I should refresh it.
Yeah, I'm due. I'm either due to bring it in and get this baby like cleaned up and working better, or just pull the plug.
The interesting thing now is with Braden's karting, I have developed all these associated skills, not fully fleshed out skills, but I've had to do things and learn things. And one of them is he and I built a gaming computer for his simulator so that he could do iRacing and other things online. So I now can build my next computer. In fact, in sourcing that, I have leftover parts that we didn't end up using when we upgraded. So I might be able to just like swap some parts over here. That's not something I could do in the past, Kirk. I'm a new man.
Did I see your kid took second in a recent race?
Yeah, we had a doubleheader this weekend.
Nice.
It's
And
a
I looked.
long, hot weekend.
So I was going to say, those kids were either in a rainstorm or that was sweat on their bodies because they all looked drenched standing on the podium as if a monsoon came through. And then I thought about it and I was like, I bet they sweat through everything they were wearing.
Everything. So they're in their crash resistant suits and gloves and chest protector and neck halo and helmet. And the engine sits right over their shoulder and it gets hundreds of degrees, and the muffler is right behind them and that's hundreds of degrees. So while they're moving, he says you can tolerate it because it's open top, the wind keeps you stable. But the moment you stop moving, and they have to sit in this long line to get to the scale afterwards, you're not allowed off the track unless you go over the scale. If you exit without that, it's automatic DQ. So then like they get out and they're like out of their cart, stripping things off. And it looks like you said, like they just went swimming. And that was the last race of the day. It was like 4:30 p.m. It was, I think the real feel was like 101. They're soaked and we're like, just stand there for 2 seconds. We'll take a picture and then just go get in front of a fan.
That's what it looked like.
That's exactly
looked like
what it
they'd been
was.
swimming.
And we were the last. They rotate the order each week. It's like a track meet where each class has a time roughly that you're going to go, and they give you a call 2 events in advance that you need to start bringing your cart down. And it's pretty well run, but they rotate the order down each week. So this week we were the last one. Like the one day you want, usually going in the bottom half is good because you have time to work on things in the morning. You're not first out on track, but that weekend, everyone just wanted to go home.
Get it done. Yeah. I saw it said it feels like, I don't know, 105 on Sunday afternoon when we were here, which is like kind of unheard of. We kind of went from like literally the weekend prior, it was 51 degrees when I went for my run. And then the following weekend, it's literally 95 degrees. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
The swing.
Yeah. It is a big swing. But yeah, he had a good weekend, tough weekend of racing, survived some sketchy moments. It's like the sport is slowing down for him a bit this year. He's starting to see ahead. And last year at this point, we had broke already like 7 parts, and we haven't broke anything through a crash yet this year. That's guaranteeing we do this next race now, but he's just avoiding things better. And it's really nice for me when that happens.
And you're getting your training in. I know this episode will end up being about me, but you're getting your training in amidst karting weekends?
No. I'm all in on the 5-day training week. Anything on top of that is bonus.
Okay, but you're getting your work done.
Yep. Friday, the night before or afternoon before, I was out at the ski hill for my second hill workout. Beat myself up a little bit so that I could not have to stress on the weekend.
Yeah, just go out with a freaking bang on Friday and bury yourself, and then rest assured Saturday, Sunday is earned.
Yeah. Now I'm a notch below. I'm not burying myself in anything because I'm gun shy.
Slight tongue in cheek, but a version.
That's the right concept. Yeah. My most damaging day is Friday right now.
Beauty.
My least damaging day is Monday, but still quality.
All right. Well, I'm gonna keep an eye on your Strava, which is still non-existent, but you got to work on that.
Well, like I showed you, dead watch.
Yeah.
But I had my first workout yesterday. So yesterday I did 2 by 10 minutes with 60 seconds rest, 1 by 5 minute. Eventually it's a 3 by 10 minute, but I'm keeping my quality work to between 20 and 25 minutes of work right now. And it was my first run of any sort since starting back up where I felt like my running form and everything and fitness all felt pretty good the entire time. From rep 1 till rep 3, it all felt like I knew what I was doing. So that's
Body kind of clicked right in.
it. Yeah, it just felt efficient the whole time. And I stopped before that left. So that was my first, what I would say, just all around good feeling run of the last 3 weeks.
So you're trending the right direction.
Yes.
Good.
But that's not what the people are here for.
Well, I don't know what they're here for. They can come for all sorts of reasons.
You know darn well what they're here for. We gave them a big old lead into your marathon, and then you went out and you attacked a marathon. And now we're here to
attack would be an aggressive word, I think, in hindsight. No, attack's appropriate. A failed attack, but I guess you could say attack.
Well, take us through it. We left off with what your exact plan and goals would be.
Yeah.
So give us the result right away, and then we'll go through how it all went down.
Mm-hmm. Well, just ripping the Band-Aid off, I dropped at mile 19, and I wanted to drop much sooner. I wanted to drop as early as 11. The first drop wasn't until 13, and then it goes every 3 miles. I mean, there's a drop bus, there's a drop station, there's a med tent. Every 3 miles. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's an official, like, there's big signs the size of a truck saying drop zone 500 feet ahead, 300 feet ahead. And the drop zones are always in the masses, in the crowds, which I didn't really think through, which is I'm rarely, not embarrassed, but embarrassed to be me out on race course and stepping off while there's hundreds, if not thousands of people lining the course at the drop zone was pretty humbling, we will say. So anyways, I DNF'd at mile 19 in my debut road marathon.
Now, we did an episode, not entirely around it, I don't think, but a lot about DNF. I recounted all my DNFs of my life, which A, embarrassing, but B, okay that I can name them on one hand.
Yeah.
Even though every one of them is embarrassing, I'm okay that at 38, I have 4 DNFs.
Well,
so anyway, point is, you recounted your history of DNFs at that point, which was how many?
0.
So you had your debut DNF.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which I'm sure was an ego hit because it would be nice to retire with none.
Yeah. Yeah, it would. So it's Tuesday morning at like 10 o'clock. We're recording this, and I DNF'd about, let me think, 3 exact days ago to the minute, roughly. So I think last night and this morning, I think I've come to, like, I've processed, I think. And I'm still sorting out a few details as to the why. I think that's the right phrase, to the why. I can say it like the easy answer is injury, right? But I need to look one step beyond that because I think that leaves me with few takeaways. So I think I have processed enough to sort it out with you and the listeners, if you would like to. Do you have background noise going on your end, or what's going on? Brakken's giving me like the keep talking hand gesture.
All right, I think we're free and clear. Just
what was that about?
Something's going down right now. A lot of sirens, a lot of vehicles going by. And I don't know if you can hear it, but the Milwaukee Mile, the racetrack, is quarter mile from my house, and they are out there testing something right now.
Oh, no, you can't hear anything. Sounds
okay. Well, that's good.
Crickets.
But, the sirens were real.
So I'm going to set up the race as to how it went, like in the lead in, and then what I was feeling as we started. And there's something that you don't really know about this recent injury that I didn't even feel like starting when we recorded on Thursday because I didn't even know what I was dealing with. And so this may come to a surprise, but I've been dealing with an IT band issue on the outside of my leg in the knee and the insertion. I've had a little soreness on the inside of that same knee, but lower, coming and going, but nothing that would take me out. It was a little bit there on Wednesday this past week. By Thursday night, after we had recorded, I could barely put pressure on my right leg. Couldn't roll around in bed, couldn't, like I was up throughout the nights, like any movement was like, I had like a dead leg, and the source was medial on the exact opposite side of my knee in which had originally been bothering me. And it has to be, I talked to 2 PTs between Thursday and Friday, some sort of compensation issue. My T band would really grab if I like pronated, so I started to like keep my knee tight when I was running, kind of tucked in, and it would prevent my IT band from grabbing. Anyways, I had no idea this was coming, but the inside of my left knee all of a sudden was like just as bad, but not sharp, but just never going away, like my IT band. So I'm like, what on earth is going on? Limped around through life on Thursday, limped around on life through Friday, went for a run, said, Jess, I'm going to see how this thing goes. I don't know. And it didn't get any worse throughout my run, but it didn't really get better. I kind of limp ran, but I got through it okay. My heart rate was too high for the effort on my recovery run the day prior, but whatever. Anyways, I'm like, I'm going to go race this thing. And I'm dealing with a new side of my knee issue. My original issue, we did a great job of fixing. Didn't grab on me one time during the race, Brakken.
Really?
That's not what took me out. And as of today, the inside part of my knee is still, I've never dealt with a knee issue in my life, is like, barely put any pressure on it, and it's piercing. So that was what happened in the last few days in the lead-in. I text my PT on Thursday night and be like, I'm effed. What happened? And he tried to help me make sense of it, and it was like, well, we're in the 10th hour. It's time. It doesn't matter. Let's see what we can do. And that's why I had tape on the inside of my knee on race day, not on the outside. And I was like, well, let's see what happens. And that's how I told the stupid start line, limping to the start line because of internal knee pain, not external, which of course that happened. So I was trying to make sense of that, but I didn't want to start talking about it because I didn't know what I was dealing with.
Okay.
So you following me?
Yep. I'm not blaming the marathon build for this, but this is just another example that the second biggest challenge of the marathon is getting to the start line healthy.
I got snot in the back of my throat. Keep talking.
And it's a real thing. The marathon build, just like the marathon itself, it lets things bubble up to the surface. And you're doing enough work that sometimes just getting there is difficult.
And I thought of you because I came so close and I fell short. And my original issue, we did a beautiful job of taking care of. And I really commend Dr. Patrick for helping me through and getting there. But I created another problem by changing, I think, my mechanics a little bit.
Start of my life, huh?
Right. And so I'll be clear. I could have finished the race. It wasn't pain that I couldn't run through. I DNF'd because I had to start fighting so hard to keep pace, not running well, that I was tipped, broken, and over, and writing was on the wall. I could have finished. I could have probably run 7-minute miles to finish and probably done more harm than good long-term, but it wasn't like somebody shot a bullet into my knee and I was stranded. It was...
So it didn't grab and you dropped.
No.
It took you from, I think I could run 540 to 545 for a long time, asleep, to I am working to try to get my stride to run 540 to 545.
I was forcing a square peg into a round hole with pacing on a gate that didn't really feel smooth. And as I started to slip, 550, then 549, then 551, and I'm just slapping the ground. I can hear my feet, right? Like I'm just not buttery like I had been feeling when things were going well. And
the alphas will tell you out loud.
Oh, they told me out loud. And I was like, I'm going to still keep pressing. Maybe it'll come around. Maybe things will get smooth. Maybe I'll hit a downhill and get my heart rate back, right? But what I wasn't willing to do is start running 6:15s at mile 10 and saying goodbye to my goals. And so My heart rate sat, I think for the last 5 or 6 miles, I was over 180 average. I don't even know I could hold it that long. And I still had, 9+ miles to go at that point. And so I trapped myself trying to stick to my pacing, and I was bankrupt. I
Yeah.
bankrupt due to inefficiency and my stubbornness to keep pace. And I just died. I mean, I literally died out there, and it was over again. And I wasn't interested in finishing
Right.
because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze to me at that point. And I'm here with a sore knee still today. And so I made a business decision. Well, I will be fully transparent, was absolutely miserable. So there it is. I can get into details with it and walk you through it, but that's the big picture what happened.
Well, this is what happens when you have a time-based goal that matters more than the process, right? You weren't there to enjoy a marathon. You weren't there to experience it. You were there to try to thread a needle.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, if you miss the A or the B goal, the C goes out the window at the exact same time. And
Yeah.
that's the line.
Yeah. So part of me is like, are you a giant P word and you just mentally failed yourself? Or was it really physical? And then the mental followed because it wasn't going according to plan based on, I mean, I was notably, if you could see me, I was favoring, I was not smooth. Oddly enough, I was trying to like overstride to compensate, which I never do, which is bizarre. So it certainly wasn't my day. And I did not expect to have an internal knee issue be the thing versus my IT band, but that's what it was. So leading in, I dealt with that the 2 days prior. I'm sitting there talking to Jess on Friday, like, I don't even know. I'm going to go out for my run and see if this thing can hang. I mean, more as painful to walk as it is to run. That's the weird thing. Running almost freed me for a little bit, and then until it didn't. Anyways, decide to go show up, get there. About 24 hours earlier, the wind switch happened in Duluth earlier than it was supposed to. And so instead of being like in the 50s with a tailwind, it turned into up to 80 with a headwind. So the conditions went from like, this could be the best day to run fast to the opposite of that. 99% humidity, it said in the morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like at that point, you just wanted to rain.
Yeah, it was, I mean, soup. So conditions were not ideal. Times were slower across the board. It was one slower. The times to take were slower. So conditions, but that's irregardless, right? That's just what the setup was. So race morning was delayed by 30 minutes because we had huge thunderstorms come through that night. Jess and I were in the camper and it was shaking. And so we were up from like, I was up from like, I don't know, 1:30 to 4 and then fell back asleep for a half an hour. But that's race night. I got plenty of sleep throughout the week. I'm not even going to look at that as the reason, but it was interesting. So we wake up, go to the race. I'm limping all the way, like the whole deal, to the bus, off the bus, to the start line, but thinking like maybe it'll come around. And I wasn't nervous. I mean, it wasn't like I was literally there like it was another Saturday long run. I felt so confident that still like I'm chill. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't like an anxiety thing. I was like bullshitting with people about deer hunting for like a half an hour as we're sitting there in the parking lot on our butts, just like doing nothing. I was like, I'm cool. At least I'm cool. So I went in like that. Got into the elite start corral, which was pretty cool. Start looking around and it is unbelievable. I mean, the eye test on these people, and Jess even said it as she's watching people run by. I mean, this is the tiniest subset of human beings I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it is. And I was standing in line in the Portos in the elite corral. They have their own separate area about a quarter mile from the start line, like into the race. It's like everything's taken care of. I had access to that, so I was able to go there. And just standing in line at the Portos and like watching everybody around, it was like I could tell looking at me there, like I think this guy's just like he's not supposed to be here, but whatever. You could just tell they all knew each other and they all had their names on their bibs. I didn't. Anyways, the elite subset is unbelievable, Brakken. Like the build. Have you ever been around like the Africans shoulder to shoulder? Have you been in an environment like that?
Yeah, it's just different. And we preach not being controlled by your weight on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to a pro race and you realize how quick it turns for you to be thinking that way. because any sport, and I was just talking to a few people about this after High Rocks. They're asking, like, has High Rocks arrived? It was like, from a business standpoint, yes, but from an athlete standpoint, not quite yet. And I think one of the hallmarks of a sport that is just fully fleshed out is when it narrows you down to a certain body type that fits through the keyhole of that sport. Where you look at swimmers at the top end, and there are big swimmers and small swimmers, and they're all built from the same prototype. And you look at wrestlers, and they're big
with a
and small wrestlers.
there's a few rare exceptions, but
yes,
99% of them.
Yep. And you look at anything, positions in sports, people look like the sport. And running is one of the oldest sports on earth. And at the top end, they look like the sport. And you can see how people get caught in that mentality of, I would be faster if I were smaller. And the truth is, that is usually not true. You kind of have to start small to be healthy small. You have to have grown up that way. It's very difficult to get there from any other direction than from the bottom. You have to rise up into that frame to be healthy at that frame. And that's I think that's the piece people miss the most, is it's hard to get down to that frame from above with health. But there's no arguing the fact that the top of the sport looks different, and it's everywhere. It's ankles, knees, hips, wrists, shoulders, every single piece of it is different.
Yeah. Inseam compared to torso length.
Might as well be a different subset of the species.
Yep. It really is just very interesting being, I noticed it last year in the half a bit, but this year, and men and women alike, the women, I mean, again, there's an exception or two.
Yep.
And there were a handful of men taller than me, like tall, sort of lankier, like Americans or Europeans. It was hard to tell. It's always interesting to hear like Swahili spoken at the start line and other languages. There was Spanish, a version of going on. And then there was some, I don't know, an African subset language, but tiny. Oh my goodness. I mean, 5'6" to 5'8", I'm going to say for the men, and 115 to 125 pounds would be a good guess, I think, for me. Anyways, that's so beside the point. But point being is I had access to all that stuff. We're all doing our warm-ups. The elite corral, there was probably 100 of us, 115 of us in the men's elite start corral. We went a half an hour later, so it was warmer than it was supposed to be for the start. But excuse me, I've got a bit of allergy stuff going on. So do you.
I didn't run hard for 19 miles on mine.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm soaked through all my clothes already in the warm up. I didn't overdress. It was quite hot. Heart rate was definitely running high. I thought it was the conditions, and maybe it was. So it was already running high, but I didn't think too much of that. Sometimes that happens. And then on the race, you settle in. So the gun goes off. I'm in like third row, maybe something like that. And immediately the entire field slowly but surely whoosh in front of me. And I'd say by about a half a mile in, I do the shoulder checks, and maybe there's 2-3 guys behind me. Maybe.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's an uphill, net uphill first mile. And I'm going to look here. I'll pull it up.
While you're doing that, I want to say this is the third weekend in a row I spent tracking people. This race season. By and large, race tracking apps are hot garbage.
This one's pretty good.
This one's okay. But the splits they chose to show make absolutely no sense. 5K, 10K, half marathon. And then it starts going like
16, 19 or something, no?
16, 19, 20, 21, 25. We just go back and forth from imperial to metric, willy-nilly.
That is true.
Just show every mile. Just show every mile. Or just keep it 5K. Anyway, theirs at least functioned for the most part. But there are some terrible race tracking apps out there. And I had forgotten that for a while. And I've been very frustrated this last month trying to track people. So Braden and I brought the pop-up camper to his weekend because it was so hot that we needed So we have air conditioning in there, or at least a window unit in there that was on
Mm.
its last legs. And so we'd get back from the race, we'd strip down, get right in front of the air conditioner, and just sit on the floor there in front of it and watch your splits in between the races.
That sounds terrible.
So that's what we were doing. We were
Endearing.
tracking you.
Yeah, I know you text Jess after suddenly it's like my splits weren't updating and you're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So I went out in 5:37. And I think there were 2 guys behind me. At 5:37, there was a group of like 4 or 5 just in front of me, like 10 meters. And even that, I was like, you got to let them go. You just can't even. And then that gap stayed for like 3 to 5 miles, 10 meters, 15 meters, not a ton. But I was like, just settle, Kirk. Like, don't. The only issue is there was a headwind and I could have really benefited from just tucking in, right? I did end up reeling them in a little bit. But point being, in hindsight, going with the elite field might have been a mistake. I thought there would be some slow roll players here, like just like me, and there weren't. So that was just
they became that eventually.
I actually moved up through the field as on my way to the DNF. By the way,
from 5K to 10K, you picked off over 10. It looked like.
Right, people were already starting to come back a little bit, and then the first drop started happening somewhere. I already saw people starting to fade between 9 and 11 pretty hard. But point being, my A goal was 5:39 pace. Okay. So I averaged out my splits. Let me see here. I just got to pull it up. So I averaged out my splits. I was 5:40 through 7 miles on the head. So still in the game. At 14 miles, I was at 5:44, which was still 2:30 pace, or sub 2:30. But the cost in which to do that increased so exponentially. And the tipping point for me was there was a gradual hill. It was like mile 7-ish, somewhere in there. And when I run uphill, the one thing that I've noticed is the catch in the IT band can present itself, we will call it. I think it was mile 8. And I was gun shy and started favoring my gait and tucking my knee more to make sure the IT band didn't grab. When I started to do that, this inside knee officially got aggravated. It was almost like I worked through it and I felt pretty good and didn't think about it for like 3 to 7 miles. And then as soon as I like torqued to just like, I literally had it down, Brakken. When I'm going up a hill, I tuck my knee in and I can prevent the grab. And muscle memory did that. And in that moment, it was like, that's what has done this to me. And the inside of the knee started screaming. And
so done a lot of uphill work.
I have. And so I did a bit of this like limp run, putting like a lot of pressure on my left leg and sort of getting through that hill and working really, really, really hard to do it. Ran a 5:51 with the uphill in there, slipping. And that's when I tipped. My average heart rate for that mile was 176. And I'm only 8 miles in to a 26-mile race. And then it sort of stuck around. And then I fought 550, 542, 553, 551, 549, 550. That's through 14. And I was fighting so hard to do it with like favoring slightly. I already knew then it was done. I thought maybe I could rally. We get to mile 13, which is the first official drop, and I'm already begging to just step off. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I already know I'm done. I'm cooked. My legs are gone. My heart rate was at 180 average. I still had half the race left. And I'm tipped. I'm so tipped. And it was like my legs were full. I had that like end stage marathon feel is what I expected to feel at some point. And it was coming earlier. And the heart rate just wasn't coming. It wasn't coming down, wasn't responding. And the only thing I can pin it on is, yes, the conditions weren't great. And I think that was part of it. But I think I went from like efficient and smooth to like literally clunky and not, and running way too hard to maintain my emotionally attached to pacing. So I hung on and bled out slowly and slowly. 606, 604, 610, 615, 613, my final mile. Writing was on the wall. At best, I'm running 635 or 235, probably closer to 240 when this thing is all said and done. I'm limp running notably. My heart rate's pegged at 182 for miles in a row. I'm like, I don't even know where to go from here other than to step off because nothing feels good. My knee feels terrible. I'm working so hard. It was the hardest I've worked in a long time to DNF. Literally, I sat in it, even though things were going backwards. And so ultimately, I waited until mile 19 and it was confirmed I wasn't coming back around. Even on the downhills, it wasn't like I was gaining any momentum, and uphills was a joke at that point, like trying to even maintain pacing. And so it wasn't a pride thing. It wasn't like if I can't run a fast time, I can't tolerate a slower marathon time than I was ready for. It was more like, what am I even doing here anymore? Is how I felt.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of it.
What did you feel when you stepped off?
Relief.
Okay. I think there are two types of DNFs. DNFs where you really should, and DNFs where you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And you want to often for both, but you shouldn't always. And to me, the difference is the people who should keep going and decide to quit immediately, there's a compulsion to tell everyone why you dropped. You'll see that in races. Each person they interact with, they immediately lead with the story. And I think it's out of like preemptive shame. And then there's the type where when they drop, all they can do is go through the checklist of their body or move over to get water or sit down, or you're seeking relief or help rather than explanation. And so when you cross, your first order of business tells you whether the DNF was smart or not. And if you felt relief instantly, you're probably on one side of that coin.
What side of the coin does relief tell you I'm on?
Like if you were glad you did it and your first thought wasn't shame, that's probably on the side of it wasn't a bad choice to DNF.
Well, of course there was shame. I mean, there's hundreds of people. The drop zone is like literally a carved out section amidst the crowd.
Well, there's embarrassment and there's shame, and I think that they're different.
It was embarrassment.
Yeah.
But it was relief. It was like, I am so glad to be done because nothing about that felt right or good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And so, and honestly, I was in a lot of pain, like just from the effort. Like I think in hindsight, if I were to go into damage control, I would have just backed off notably and earlier after that hill, like saying goodbye to my race about mile 8, reducing down to 6 flat and seeing if anything I could get myself together or at least get my heart rate to come down and maybe not have to fight so hard for pacing. But that wasn't of interest to me. And it was honestly the biggest effort for that last like 4 to 6 miles, like just mentally and actually physically. If you look at my heart rate, what was being put out to keep it, I was like it was a bigger effort than I put in maybe years to literally get to a DNF, which is so messed up, but it's the truth.
Interesting.
Yeah, my relative effort on Strava is notably higher than anything I've done or any race, even my trail races that lasted longer. And it just tells me like the output. Let me see what it was. I don't know if this means anything to people. My relative effort was 437 for that, which is astronomical.
That's big. Does it say historic next to it?
Says a stronger than average effort, but it doesn't say historic. But anyways, so I don't want people to think like my knee blew out, which is what my wife's mother was telling everybody. Like Kirk's knee blew out. He DNF'd. Like it changed what I was doing enough to make me work too hard to run as fast as I wanted to. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah. Well,
what are you looking at?
I was just looking at what my highest relative effort ever was.
So this leads me to, by the way, the whole drop process is a whole nother thing in itself. Like that last 3 to 6 miles before I dropped, I'm starting to catch men who went out too hot, which was also interesting. And when you talk about coming back hard in a marathon, I mean, I came on 2 men who were walk running already, and they looked the part, and I don't know how far ahead they were before they ended up fading. They could have been contenders for the win. I don't know. But 2 guys are walk running, and I think they're just getting themselves to the next drop zone. You have somebody who was clearly running probably 5 minute to 5:15 at least pace or faster, now running 7 flat, and we're at mile 16 already, going backwards. You drop out, and they have like a school bus, a short bus around the corner. All right, well, are you okay? Do you need medical attention? Do you need anything? Very nice. And then it just starts accruing DNFs, and the first DNFs are all in the elite field, the men and women. And so they sit you on this bus, and then you go like scoop up the next DNF corral and the next DNF. And there's like 12 of us in this DNF bus, and the bus driver isn't reading the room. She's like, "Oh, did you see that deer across the road? And oh, what a day this is." And you have this somber
She doesn't
group.
know really who she's carrying.
She has not a clue. And there's like 10 or 12 of us in there, all with elite bibs, and it's just like the most somber. There's no music in this bus.
There should be organ music slowly piped in.
Dead quiet, and we're all swallowing in our own DNF, and she is like trying to make jokes, and nobody's even responding, and we're trying to courtesy, like, or give her something. It's just like this somber bus, and it takes like an hour to get back to where they're taking us. Oh, we got to wait for 2 more DNFers from this point, and they get scooped in these other buses, and then you all go, and we just sit there in our stupid space blankets on this bus, dead quiet. Nobody's talking to each other. I tried to make conversation with the elite woman next to me, who is clearly not happy. She's kind of crying with her head against the seat in front of her. And she was just like not having it. And I'm like, I guess that's what's going to happen here. And so it was a weird bus ride back, man. Weird, with this weird lady who is too chatty and hyped up. And then a whole bus of people who weren't. Very interesting.
The ultimate walk of shame.
It was really bad. Yeah, it was not good. So all I'm trying to sort out then after this is the why. And I've deduced down to a couple of things, I think, if I'm going to fix this problem.
Okay.
I'm wondering if I work too hard in training.
That's always on the table for you. And that sounds like not a compliment. You are, of the people I've known, there is a category of athletes, starting in college, I started seeing them, who can get themselves to race level performance in training. And there's not a lot of people who can, and you are in that group. And because you can get yourself there, you can get a lot out of workouts. And because you can get a lot out of workouts, it will always be a potential that you could look back and second guess something. I'm not saying you're bad at training. I'm not saying you work too hard. I'm saying you have the ability to work too hard.
I never thought at one point I'm leaving my race in training in any given workout necessarily, but like if I'm going to do tempos at marathon pace and followed by mile repeats, I was tempoing in the like 5:30 flat, low 5:30s, and then doing work afterwards. And in hindsight, really what I should have done is marathon pace plus. I should have gone and tempoed at 5:45 to 5:50, not 5:30 to 5:35. Stayed available and hungry. Let me tempo in quotes for the first time on marathon race day at marathon pace, and let that be my shot instead of trying to do that in some form every week, which I was. I'm wondering if I maybe just used that match too many times, and by the time I got to race day, it was sort of like a downgraded version of what I was capable of because I just used it too much in training, which I know sounds a little silly, but I'm wondering if that's part of it. I don't know. The other thing, did I need to be running, let's say mile repeats a week and a half out, running my last under 5 minute pace, running 5 flat, 5:0? 5:15s would have done me a lot of good because that's way faster than marathon pace. Go run pace, stay available. I can tip on race day when it matters instead of almost racing my last repeat or two to just squeak the last bit of adaptation in my eyes out of it. And so instead of trying to get all the juice out of every single squeeze, I think in hindsight, if I got 3/4 of the juice out of these big workouts, but always had a little bit left or downgraded my pacing expectations slightly because everything's faster than marathon pace
Yep.
in these sessions, right? It's like marathon pace is not hard to run for duration in training unless it's in a real extended tempo effort. And so I think my ego in training thought the bigger pace gap I could make on my training sessions, relatively easier marathon would pace and thus pace would feel, and thus I could hold that for longer. And I think that logic is sound if it can be done without going into too hard of efforts in your training sessions to do so. And so I'm wondering if I was a little under recovered still when it mattered. What do you make of that assessment?
Well, I believe the marathon is a stupid distance
Yeah,
and
you've said that.
pace. Not because of anything other than it sits in between efforts. And so it is too slow to be hard and too fast to be easy.
I agree
And
with that.
you're forced to choose the lesser of two evils in a lot of decisions in the marathon build.
Hmm.
And because the build is so long and the recovery is so big afterwards and the race is so long, it takes a long time to dial it in. And so things that are, I mean, you're describing Connor Mance, but it worked for him, right?
But this is the thing. Yes and no. Yes and no, because you look at what Connor Mance, if we're going to use some of the best, Clayton.
You trained similarly from him and you drew from his coaches. I know that.
On two
So
sessions.
it's a good comparison. You watch a lot of his stuff. It's a good comparison.
Well, but you look, and Connor Mance is tempoing at 5:15 pace when his marathon pace is sub 5.
He's finishing hard. He's tempoing light.
I'm tempoing at or harder than marathon pace and then finishing hard.
Correct.
So the pre-fatigue portion of what they are doing would be me backing off and I'm going to go run 8 miles at 5:50 pace.
Correct.
And then swing for the fences on my mile repeats. And so I was upgrading the intensity of my tempo portions.
So anyways, I say all that to say this. I think you had to feel it to know. Is something too much? Is it too little? The marathon on paper is spitting into the wind. You may get some on yourself. You may not. But you really don't know until you try it. Next time you're going to know how to position yourself into the wind. And what you're saying right now is the exact takeaway you needed to know.
But on the other side of the coin, I feel like I was underprepared. Meaning, I didn't know what the feeling was going to be like 13, 15, 18 miles into sitting in it. And part of me wonders if that was needed as well.
Uh-huh.
Some of these long extended cut down long runs where maybe I start easy, but I spend 14 miles the back half working sort of in and around marathon pace, which I know sounds silly. And all of that amidst the questions of like, did I just have a bad lead in because of some of these navigations of injury? And if it was a cool day and I was not dealing with injury, would this have been a roaring success?
Yeah.
Regardless of everything else. And so I can't quite separate, but I can't let the injury thing cloud and gloss over any other mistakes. That's a fool's take. I can't just be like, the knee, you'll get them next time, Kirk, because that is not doing all of this hard work justice. That is just giving me an excuse that is invalid.
Correct.
And so
I think you have to do both. I think you have to still see the flaws. And if you feel at your core that intensity was a flaw, you have to take that moving forward. However, you also can't invalidate the knee because there's a very real chance that you didn't feel what a marathon feels like. That you ran hamstrung and you felt what that feels like. You may have felt what an ultra on the roads should feel like in the last 15K. There's a very real chance that if you have no hitch in your giddy up, that you get done with this and you still think, I may have overcooked some workouts, but you wouldn't be thinking, I didn't sit in this feeling enough because that feeling didn't happen without the compensation. So I think you're right to take the training intensity pieces into account. But Sitting in it in a marathon does not begin at 9 miles. Sitting in it does not begin at 11. DNF considerations don't start at 14 based off of I haven't felt this pace. They start because you've gone out way too hot. So if you ever feel it in the future, it's because you've gone out too hot. It's if you're that cooked at 9 to 14, you either went out way too hard or you're running differently. So
both is what it ended up being.
Correct, but I'm saying it's not that you didn't feel that. You'd run 9 miles at 5:45 pace. That wasn't the issue.
There was a run. I looked back at this was a run this winter, and I think it was 5:46 pace for 16 miles or something.
Yeah.
And I look at my average heart rate and the effort. It was a good day. I had a good long run, and it was progression. I started over 6-minute pace. I ratcheted down. I sat at 5:40s, and it was like I wasn't racing it at all. And my heart rate was 20 beats a minute lower on average. And I was literally 4 seconds a mile faster than my 19-mile average on race day.
Yep.
And that was nothing, not nothing. I'm not belittling it, but like, so then part of me is like, I was either burnt or I just had a bad day, because in training, I had run roughly 2:30 marathon pace for 16 miles and then went about my business the rest of Saturday as if nothing was wrong. But that was in 40-degree temperatures at the beginning of a build, not at the end. At the same time, I was so fresh this last week and a half. Like my legs felt so light and bouncy, like in general. I was jumping out of my skin. I had all of the pre-race, like I felt fresh going in. I felt under-trained almost. So I didn't feel like I was tired going in any aspect. And that's what's confusing to me is I thought I was like, I'm jumping. I'm so ready to work. I'm just craving work. I was really craving work, feeling fat and sloppy, feeling ready to rip. And so that's an interesting thing for me because the piano on my back was astronomical. And I thought it would never come because I had so much stored up from the taper. And so there's all of that in the mix, right? And that's a confusing thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one last variable. If you were dealing with a bad day and you're dealing with a stride imbalance, it takes less to tip you over. And what is the actual cost of sub 540 slightly uphill that first mile? Is that enough to take you to a place that was slightly different than anything you prepared for? That's the final consideration.
I felt very relaxed through 5 or 6. It was like, I can do this. I was still thinking like, I'm not working yet at all. Right. Granted, I'm in the back of this field and it's only 5 or 6 miles in, and that's how you should be feeling. But even though my heart rate was, still in the 160s and upper 160s, which was a little higher than I wanted to see, I was like, okay, like I'm okay. Like I'm okay. I'm right around 540. I'm above water. And it really tipped that. Like I felt like something tipped in that range. So I don't know if I miscalculated or if it was other circumstances.
Well, how uphill was the first mile?
Oh, it was just uphill for the first like quarter to half of it. Gradual. Oh, maybe it gained 20 feet.
So what was your split?
But then after the rise, it was a gradual down, 5:37, I think.
So, I mean, it is 7 seconds faster than your goal first mile was. And half of that was spent going uphill. So if your margins were smaller because of your knee and stride, it didn't help.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't know your body. You knew what it felt like. But what does everyone say the first couple miles of the marathon feel like? Anyway, I would put some stock in that. I would put very little stock in, I hadn't felt this before. And I would put some real stock into, I need to adjust how much time I'm spending significantly faster than marathon in any one given workout.
Any big chunks of time significantly faster. It's okay to hit mile repeats or even 2 mile or even, but to like tempo, and I mean like sitting it for 30 plus minutes. I'm not sure how valuable that was.
Yeah. And if there's value to it, I think it ends when you start reaching. And I think you had several workouts where you said, I really pressed that last rep.
Kicking home a little bit.
Yeah. And again, I don't think I can say you messed up by doing that. But if you're looking for things that could lead to this, that is a statement that could be indicative of what you're saying. But that's, again, you have to feel this, and you did. And you've built, the saving grace is you built really good fitness doing that. So if you don't have surgery waiting for you,
I don't believe I do,
then you have an enormous base of fitness sitting and waiting for whatever you want to do from here. And now you have another really good set of experiences to narrow in the reticle on the next block.
Yeah, I have some severe PTSD and very gun shy right now of the marathon, sitting a few days out. Yeah. The other thing in hindsight is we talked about entering the elite field or going off with the masses. By the time I dropped, I was passed by 2 guys from the masses. If they didn't run sub 220, I'd be shocked the way they were moving.
Yeah.
There are plenty of good athletes that just didn't apply or didn't get into the elite field that worked through the regular field, we'll call it. And there is this level of feeling exposed, almost like a fraud, as I was in the tail end, and the pros are so far ahead, out of sight, even just a few miles in. And I'm coming through the stations, and there's hundreds of people lined every half mile or mile. It's incredible. And I'm all alone. There's nobody behind me. I can't see it, because the women's field hasn't caught. And there was a pressure I put on myself to not let go of the last remaining elites that probably caused me to press, when if I went with the open, I would have been very happy to sort of blend and run my race and know
You've
my
had
role.
Options.
And so I broke my own win the entire race, and there was a headwind. Everybody else was tucked in packs, literally, except the guys dying, and then me. I swear to God, I was in no man's land the entire time, running into a headwind. I could have tucked. I could have been packed up. I could have not felt pressure early and maybe worked myself into a race that at least felt respectable. Heaven forbid I run 232 or even 235, but do it in a way in which I could be proud of executing on the body that I had that day. But that was a hindsight thing. I think if I were to redo this, I think it would have been very helpful to not get caught up early.
Yeah.
I thought I'd have a posse around me, and we were strung out on the back. And it cost a lot of people who were in front of me, because I saw them starting to come back. I wasn't the only one, but I think it would have been better. You can't bank time in a marathon. We've said this. And so I think it would have been smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last thing I'm waffling over, and then I can shut up really about it, is what to do next. And that is, do I do this again and aim for something, use a summer heat block of training, and then have a fall marathon, run an earlier spring marathon, run a winter marathon and travel, leave it alone and go pursue something else for a little while and decide? I can't quite figure that out. I'm terrified of the same thing happening and thinking I'm more fit than I am, and then ending up in the same place, because that's embarrassing, is what that is. So that I have to sort through still.
Well, I didn't just go through this, so I can just calmly give an answer that I don't have to feel.
Please, I would love one. I would love this.
You take an extended break here. I don't know, 20 days. And then you build for a fall marathon that you travel to. You pick a marathon that is set up to be the exact weather and course that you want. Could be here. Doesn't matter. But you choose one that does not have variables, and you train for it, and you now get the experience. You got the first one out of the way, and now you go get to execute one. I think that is the only thing to do.
And what if I don't execute?
Well, then you deal with that when you get there.
No.
Not everyone's a marathoner, but you won't know until you get another one. You just won't know.
It's funny how I was so confident going in my fitness, and I still am. And so I don't know if this is like a one-off, and if I ran 5 more, they would go relatively well, right? Or if this would have been the outcome regardless as to injury lead-in. Like, I just don't know.
Well, you could DNF either way, but it wouldn't have been struggling to hold pace from 11.
That I feel confident in, yes.
we can't get too high or too low after any result. And you, with your confidence shaken because you took one on the chin, is not the place to sit for very long.
Yeah.
You have to, I think when you take your first big loss, you have to prove it. Same thing with your first big win. You either have to prove that loss right or wrong. And the only way to do that is by doing it again. And honestly, it would be a waste of all your build, all your fitness, if you pivoted to something else that was trivial. Because pivoting to the 5K now is not the move. There's only heat ahead. 5K doesn't come off of marathon training well. You would need a longer build. The build would be to spring for a 5K, a really good 5K probably. I think you've not scratched this itch. You got surprised. And you won't be surprised for the next one. So no, don't sign up for it yet. But that's the move.
I'm gonna sit on
You
it.
will wonder what if you don't go after another one. And there is nothing worse for an athlete than what ifs. If you find out again and you're embarrassed, that is way better than what ifs. Because then you can just say, I'm not meant for this.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't laid an egg. I don't call this laying an egg, but I usually show up and take care of business, and I have for quite a while, feeling pretty good about what I've executed. So I'm like trying to just sort through it for the first time, and I'm not beat up. Like my day is good. My week has been good. I had a great weekend afterwards. I'm at peace with it. I'm at terms with it. Everything's fine. So, but as like a high performer with high expectations, you got to microanalyze, and so I'm sorting through all those things kind of objectively. If I'm being honest, I'm trying to sort through it objectively, and it's hard when you're looking through your own lens. I think I agree with you.
You get to wallow for a bit. And then the other perspective is that as a coach, you're going to have someone else do this eventually. So you might as well test out what you're going to do with them anyway and see if you can improve upon it. But you've got to scratch this itch. You can't go from 10 out of 10 confidence to maybe what if it happens again? there's a middle ground in there that you need to get back to, and you will.
Yeah. This is a good talk. I didn't run a full marathon, first of all. So like I don't have what the last 7 miles of that race would have done to me. So I'm just taking this week. I already want to run today. It's Tuesday. I really do.
Yeah. You got to get rid of everything in your knee.
Yeah. And so I'm working on that this week. It's still very sore, but it is improving. I've been told we think we can correct this pretty quickly, hopefully. If it is what we think is going on. And so I'm going to take the week, and then I may reintroduce training right away next week. I don't think it's like going to be a systemic metabolic recovery structurally in other places. I need a week just to decompress and then be hungry. I'm already starting to get hungry to train. So that's good. I like want to already right my wrongs. Right. But like, I'm going to hold back. And I'm hoping to ramp back up next week. I do not believe that not running is the answer. I think intentional and smart running on this thing is the answer. My intuition tells me that.
It's just not training.
We'll see. So we'll suss that out. I won't. What do you mean it's not training?
I'm saying you can't fix this with a hard week of training.
Correct.
Either side. It's go back to exercising and running and then let it tell you. But I don't know. This is time for steady Eddie right now. This is time to not make a single decision.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to just ramp back up, hopefully, barring health. And if not, I'll listen to my body and get square. But, and then, I think in the next, maybe by August, I'll give myself some time by August. I'll see if I can decide on what I want to do next. I'm supposed to do the US 50K Trail Champs out in California in August. I'm just thinking that may not be my bet right now with how things are going. So I was registered for the Afton Trail Race in 2 weeks. I'm probably just going to nix and DNS both those and email directors and get my name off the list and take it off, and then just,
good,
as you said, get back and then reassess.
I would
the plan. Yeah.
But there's one final option.
Okay.
And that is if you clear this up shortly. That option is to go fly somewhere cool and run another marathon in the next 2 months.
Just one off it, almost like get myself back to some sort of mileage and then race.
Yeah, 100%. And go out at 550 and then just get your marathon experience in and learn what you didn't learn in this one and see what this build gave you. And then know I did that off of that plus a little like deload and weird thing. And now I know what I could really shoot for next time.
Do I know what? You just said that, and a twinge of excitement shot through my body.
It's a real option, and I
Get
like giving
the
you that little tingle.
You gave me the tingles. Get the experience without expectation, with a conservative start, maybe even a purposeful progression with an extreme holdback,
Yep.
and then see if I can learn what I need to learn the back half instead of boiling over and ruining it all. Because the lesson was learned, but it was the only lesson is gun shy. That's all it
Yeah.
is. So maybe that's not a bad idea, Brakken.
It's contingent upon this knee thing gets sorted ASAP. But you have so much fitness that whatever you lose in 2 to 3 weeks, you can get back in 2 to 3 weeks with a little less fatigue. And then you just hit 1 or 2 quality long runs and go build into a marathon and check that box and then be informed for your next one. So outside the box, yes, but I think it's a viable option. Always thinking.
It didn't even cross my mind. You're a good coach, Bracken. You're helping me sort through this. Thank you. You earn your paycheck today.
Good.
Usually in the ramp up in the first 4 to 6 weeks, I pop some workouts that I'm like, a
Every time
responder
you
as
come
you are.
off 10 days off,
Mm-hmm.
you're like third or fourth quality workout. You're like, oh man, I popped one today. Go do that.
I'm only going to take 7 to 9 days,
I
6 to 9
know.
days
I'm
off
just
now.
saying if the knee.
Let's take a look. If anybody knows, this is all.
It's happening.
No, I like the idea, and the other reason, Bracken, I like that idea is because once the fall comes, I sort of flip my own personal passion switch, and I spend a lot of time in the woods. And so, if there were a chance to maybe swing at something with less pressure and just get 26 under my belt before that kicks in, that could be really helpful for me.
Yep.
And I can train all winter and go run a February marathon in Austin in 60 degrees. I can do that, or Houston. That I can do. I could take a real swing in the winter, even off of winter training here. I'm confident in that. I really think I could. And so maybe an earlier than later swing would make sense.
Okay. So final thing before I let you
go. No, we can be done. Yeah.
Go and start Googling races.
Mm-hmm.
I like thinking of DNFs like you're filing them away in a filing cabinet. Okay. You've got to label them, which drawer you're putting them in.
Well, so I don't have any drawers yet, so now I have one drawer.
Well, you got to start a system, unfortunately. And it goes for failed workouts as well, or bad life decisions. I think being able to look back on them and seeing like, what's my default? What label do I keep seeing popping up? Then you can make decisions moving forward. But my first DNF, the label was cramps. That was at Spartan World Championships in 2012. My second one was at OCR World Championships in 13. And that one was titled Ego. I stepped off 10 meters before the finish line because I couldn't complete an obstacle. My third one, it's not a DNF, but I consider it one because I gave up at Spartan World Championships in Tahoe the second year. I basically walked it in the last 5 miles. And that would be considered shame, would be the one I did. I was unwilling to work moderately slow for the rest of it. So I just worked really slow to appear to have a great excuse. I was cracked, but I could have worked, and out of shame, I just walked it in. And I count that a DNF. Even though I finished, I gave up. And then my next one was during a Spartan Ultra, and I DNF'd out of fear. My body was telling me it might be shutting down, and there's a big climb and there were obstacles looming, and I thought there was a swim looming, and I thought I'm going to get hypothermia. I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I DNF'd out of fear there. So I think there was one more DNF somewhere. Out in California, I DNF'd out of anger. I missed a spear and walked off course. And that is the most shameful one of all. I was in second place. I threw away the win and I walked off course, and that was pathetic and petulant and childish. Anyway, I have cramps, ego, shame, fear, whatever that one was. What is your label for this one?
I don't want to say it.
Okay. But you know it.
No, I'll say it, but I don't want to say it. Ego.
Why? Okay.
because I could have slowed. I was going to have to slow down. I was over my eyeballs in lactate. I was not buffering at the rate I was done. I was cooked.
Okay.
Could I have run it in at 7-minute pace or whatever it would have ended up being? Pretty sure I could have, unless the knee continued to get worse, which I don't know. Maybe it would have shut me down. I don't know that, but my ego, I think, is what caused me to step off course because I couldn't bear the thought of running 10 or 15 minutes slower than I intended. So I'm going to go ego. I hate to say it because I could have finished.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay. Well, I have 4 DNFs, Kirk, and one that I count as a DNF.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to say 4.5, maybe 5. You have 1.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
You're here.
This club is stupid.
It's a stupid club.
Stupid
There's
club.
no membership card.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thanks for. I only have one
Not my
DNF
pleasure.
drawer, luckily, right now. I don't have like a whole closet full of drawers with DNFs.
Yeah, we want to solder this thing shut.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important, folks, you guys listening out there. There's a chance I'm being a little too critical of myself when I could just say it was injury. It was a factor, but we don't learn a whole lot if we point the finger at the easiest thing to point at, right? Because then we don't take any of the other lessons out of what we've done away. Nothing. It all gets masked and covered up. The real miscalculations get covered up by the injury causing the DNF, which I could ride that train and everybody would be happy, including myself, to pretend that's the only thing. But there's so many more things that went into this, and you have to dissect those things too. What led me up to get injured? Was I pressing too hard too early and 4 weeks out when my T-band went? And then I can go all the way back to the decisions that led up to the initial injury and then the training decisions made regardless as to the injury. And you have to explore those things because otherwise the same situation could repeat itself in the future. And that is what we don't want to do. And so the injury thing is real and it's okay for that to be part of the equation. It should be, but you're doing yourself such a disservice if you just let it be at that. And so that's why you have to be hypercritical and have somebody like Brakken to talk it through, or at least be able to sounding board off somebody in your life or sort through it in your own head, which I'm doing. But for me to be like, it's my knee. It's okay, Kirk, you'll get him next time. That is the smallest portion of the post DNF, race analyzation. And so I think it's important for people you've done a good job of that in the past with your DNFs. I believe we've chatted those out.
Just don't make a habit of it.
No, but it's just, you just can't keep it surface level with these things unless it's that obvious. Somebody hits me with their car in the middle of the marathon. Okay, that's different, right? I can say somebody hit me with their car. That's
roll an ankle.
That isn't this, and it's not what most of you experience when you have a bad race. And just don't be okay pointing it exclusively at the problem. You got to look further than that. And so that's what I was hoping to do a little bit.
Okay. I'm glad you did. A lot of people DNF. There's gonna be a lot of people who hear this. And
people are awesome. I was so overwhelmed with my messages and texts to the point I was overwhelmed. I couldn't even look at my phone. People throwing me texts and cares. It was overwhelming, probably more so than if I nailed the race, to be honest. I'm sure it was, but the people care and I appreciate that, the number of messages. So that was very nice. Thank you. It's a trivial thing we do in life called running, and there's bigger things that matter more. And people seem to care a lot about this and my results. So I appreciate that too.
We're ending on that. Thank you.
See you, folks.